Hello. Now, yesterday's vlog was very light, very terrible because I was running out of time and I was just being terrible. I didn't record it earlier in the day, which I should have because I kind of had time. So this episode is going to be extra heavy because what we're going to talk about something very complicated and complex, but it shouldn't be that way. It's where money comes from. Because you know, there's things like inflation, prices are always going up. And you know, back in the olden days, there might have been like $20 in the world. Now there's like 14 trillion million dollars in the world. And where new money comes from, see, where does new money come from? Oh, the government just prints it, you know, the government just prints it. No, the government doesn't print it. What actually happens is that the Reserve Bank of the country, such as the Federal Reserve of America or the Reserve Bank here in Australia, what they do is they loan money to the government. What they do is they print funny money, just on their printers, print some funny money. And the government sells... See, it's so complicated, I have to get it all in my mind. What happens is the government sells things called bonds, which are pretty much IOUs, and they sell them to the Federal Reserve of the country. And the Federal Reserve pays for these bonds with funny money they just invent, and they don't even print most of it. Most of it's just electrical, it's just electrical transactions. And what they do is, with these bonds, these IOUs, they come with interest attached. So if the government sells these bonds to the Federal Reserve and they have to pay interest on those bonds, and the Federal Reserve pays for those bonds, i.e. loaning the government money, with funny money that doesn't exist, they just make up out of nowhere, then every dollar has to be paid back to the Federal Reserve by the government plus interest. And now, if all money comes from the Federal Reserve, where do they get this interest? Well, they have to sell more bonds, they have to take out more loans from the Federal Reserve. So you can never pay back that interest, which means you always have to be selling more bonds to the Federal Reserve, getting deeper in debt. That's why taxes always go up and everything always goes up, because we're always getting to more debt, so you always have to take out more loans to pay for that debt, so we need more money from the people to pay for the interest, and more. So much of the money of the government goes just to paying interest to the Federal Reserve for this funny money they just invented. And as I said, that the Federal Reserve could be run by, interesting notification, is run by sneaky banking elite people, but we won't get into that. So yeah, that's where new money comes from, and that's why it's all no good. And like some governments wanted to make their own money, such as Abraham Lincoln. I think he was making the greenback for a little bit, and I think JFK wanted to make some of the country's own money interest-free, which is probably the right way to do it. And things didn't work out too well for them. Anyway, let's not get too deep down the rabbit hole. But just thought that'd be an interesting fact where money comes from. It comes from selling bonds to the Federal Reserve, which they just make up out of nothing. And you might think, oh, your money, but it's all backed by gold. Everything's backed by gold. Well, no, not so much. Because American money, as far as I know, I haven't researched this, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in around 1971 or so, Richard Nixon no longer tied the American dollar to gold because he needed extra money to pay for the Vietnam War. So then that took away that link to gold. So now paper just pretty much floats. It's based on nothing. And the Australian dollar, as far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, is pegged against the American dollar, which is now not pegged against gold, which is kind of not worth anything on its own. So the American dollar isn't pegged against anything, so it's kind of not really worth anything. It's not backed by anything. It's just paper. It's just paper, and it's people's confidence in that paper. And the Australian dollar is just pegged against the American dollar, which is just paper. So our paper is their paper, and it's all just paper. And I believe historically, correct me if I'm wrong, but every single instance in history where there is currency in any empire or anything that's not backed by anything, like it's just paper, it's just metal, it's not a precious metal, it's not backed by anything, that currency always goes down to a value 0, which means sooner or later everything's going to go kaput. And all this, if you're still listening, hopefully you know sort of some things that are happening in economics, you know, the whole European crisis and stuff, and they're going to sell more euro bonds, blah blah blah, which means you're just going to get more deeper in debt. So the situation's just getting worse. And in America, quantitative easing 3, I believe, has been announced, implemented, where they're just going to more mass bond buying by the Federal Reserve with their funny money, which is just injecting more useless paper money into the system, which doesn't fix anything. It's like a band-aid of a big gash wound. Sooner or later, your leg's going to fall off and all hell is going to break loose. So, sorry to end on a downer, but things aren't looking too good. So, oh well. My advice is to buy real assets such as like silver and all things like that. Wow, we covered a lot, didn't we? Anyway, you agree with me or disagree, whatever you like. Let's end it there. All right. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.